joining. We've just got a few people still signing in, so we'll just give them a moment or two just to get connected, and then we'll be underway very shortly. Morning again, everyone. Tim Long from Zylpha here. I think we've got most people that we're expecting. I think there's one or two still just joining, but I'm conscious of the time, so we'll press on. Hopefully you can all see the screen in front of you. We've got just a couple of slides just to go through, just sort of set the scene. What we're looking at today is Adobe Sign, specifically for Visualfiles. Therefore, the same applies for Solcase. So this is electronic signatures within Visualfiles and Solcase setting. So just to crack through the slides very quickly, we've got just a few housekeeping points. You should have a webinar control panel in front of you. It looks a little bit like the one you can see on the screen now. There's a few areas of this just to be aware of. Firstly, there's a little orange arrow up in the top left-hand corner. That'll enable you to slide the panel away in case it's getting in the way of the screen. Also, if you want to ask a question at any point, there's two ways of doing it. You can either put your hand up and we'll try and figure out how to unmute you from this end. Everybody's currently muted, and you'll then be able to ask a question. Everybody will be able to hear you. Alternatively, you can just type a question in the box in there and click send. We'll try and pick up as many of those as we can as we go through. Occasionally we get an awful lot of questions, in which case, just because of time constraints, it's easier to collate them all afterwards, and then we can send out replies to everybody. So either is fine if you want to ask a question. And finally, just to let you know that the session is being recorded, so at the end of the session, at some point later on today, you'll get an email with a link to the recording. So if there's anyone in your organisation that hasn't seen it, who you would like to see it, then pass the recording on, or if there's anything that you want to review, that'll be available for you as well. Fairly straightforward agenda for today. We've got this introduction, and then really we're just going to look at what electronic signatures are, and then one of the main questions we get asked is it legal? And we'll look at why it is. Questions around why you might want to do it. Then we're going to have a look at a demonstration, which take my life in my hands and do a live demonstration through Visualfiles, and then we've got some time at the end for Q&A. Tiny little bit about us. I think we know most people on the call today, but there's a few people we don't know. So just to let you know who we are. We're based down near Winchester in sunny Hampshire. All we do is write software for lawyers, so all of our clients are lawyers. That's either private sector lawyers or public sector. We've been going since about 2004, and we've got a range of software products out there. Document bundling is one of the ones we're best known for, but also a range of point integrations, and this is one of them for electronic signatures. Roughly half our clients are public sector and half our clients are private sector. So we've got quite a mix of clients, but they are all lawyers. The thing that gets us out of bed in the morning is making legal process more efficient with smart use of technology. So this sits squarely within there, being able to take a process that you'll all be very familiar with and improving it, not only from your point of view, but probably more importantly from the client's point of view, in order to streamline it, make it faster, make it cost less, and reduce risk. Selection of clients there. We've got some very big clients, people like Beechcrofts and HMRC, and we've got some tiny clients as well, so sole practitioners and so on, and a range of large and small public sector organisations as well. So there's probably a few names up there that you'll recognise. So let's have a look at what Adobe Sign is. The first thing we want to be able to do is we want to be able to send documents for signature, or possibly documents that we want the client to fill out as well, very, very easily from within Visualfiles, and we'll have a look at doing this in a moment. Because we're in a Visualfiles environment, although the demonstration that we'll go through has me typing things in screen and selecting documents, but it is possible to fully automate it, and we've got clients that have fully automated this process. So first thing we want to be able to do is to send documents to a range of people for signature. We then want to be able to track the process as we go through, so we want to be able to be notified when things happen to that signing process. So on the screenshot that we've got on screen now, we want to know that the status of the document has become signature requested, so we know that Adobe has sent the documents out to the client for signature, and then we want to know when the client signed them, possibly even if the client rejected them, refused to sign them. That will be useful information for you to be able to realise that this transaction isn't going anywhere, or possibly that the signer has delegated the signing to somebody else. We see that quite a bit because we use this for our software contracts. So quite often the person we send the contract to isn't the person that's going to be signing. We get a notification that the signature has been delegated to somebody else. So we can follow the process of signing all the way through. And that's recorded straight back into our Visualfiles case history automatically for us. And then the final bit of the journey is we want to be able to attach the signed document or document back into case history. So once the signer has completed the process and the documents have been signed, we simply want to get those documents back into our case history. We want to alert the fee owner to the fact that they're there, and that might mean that you want to kick off the next process in your particular workflow at that point. And that, as I said, that entire process can be handled fully automatically. If you've got a very, very streamlined process for your business, there's no reason why, as part of file inception, that entire process can't be handled. And the first thing the fee owner knows is you've got signed terms of business or whatever the document is that you've had signed back into case history, and you can move on. The other good thing about that, of course, and we'll talk a little bit about this a bit later, is that's fully auditable. And in the olden days of Rule 15 going out by post, it wasn't possible to be absolutely certain when every file had a signed Rule 15 terms of business letter back on the file. And of course, with this, because we're listening for things, we know. So we know when a particular document has come back in, and that means that we can audit it, we can report on it, and we can ensure that compliance is built in to our business process, rather than making compliance an extra activity that the fee owners have to carry out. So just moving on to, is it legal? This still surprises me slightly, but it's a question we get asked an awful lot. Now, electronic signatures became or given statutory authority in 2000 with the Electronic Communications Act. Now that act, it was an implementation of an EU directive from 1999. So electronic signatures have been around in one form or another for about 17 years now. There's an update to the regulations which comes into effect, I think it's next month, called the eIDAS regulations. Now effectively what that's doing is that's moving or streamlining the terminology in particular that's used across the whole of the EU for electronic signatures. There's three types of signature now that the eIDAS regulations give rise to. The first one is a basic electronic signature. And this could be something as simple as an email, where you get an exchange of emails, one person offers to sell a car, another person agrees to buy a car. The fact that that has been carried out electronically doesn't invalidate the fact that they've created a contract. So that would just be a basic electronic signature. We then get an advanced electronic signature, and this is where there has to be unique identification and authentication of the signer. So this could be by sending, as Adobe do, and as we'll see in the demonstration in a moment, sending a link to a specific email address, maybe getting the signer to go through some form of authentication to prove that they have control of that email address, therefore they are the people that we expect them to be. That will be an advanced electronic signature. And it's probably the most common one that we see in using this product with the range of clients that we've had using this now for 4 or 5 years. Final and sort of the gold standard is qualified. Now qualified is what we used to call digitally signing. So with a qualified signature, you need to have some kind of a signature creation device. Now this could be perhaps a token held on a USB stick or a smart card or something of that sort, but it has to be a specific signature that is issued to you by a certified authority. Now, a certified authority could be someone like VeriSign, which most of you will be familiar with, giving out certificates for internet security and so on, but there's a range of bodies now that are authorised to issue these certificates, including, believe it or not, the Post Office. So it's becoming much easier now to get a qualified electronic signature, and one of the areas that's going to start impacting very, very soon is conveyancing, because the Land Registry have recently launched their digital mortgage deed signing portal. So you'll be able to send mortgage deeds to your buyers. They'll need to have a qualified electronic signature, but they can get one of those from the Post Office. They can do that online, and they'll then be able to sign their mortgage deeds electronically. And although in speaking to the Land Registry, they say they don't have any specific plans, you can kind of imagine the next logical step for that is to take that out to other deeds, other documents that need witnessing, like transfers and so on. So electronic signatures are really starting to pervade every part of legal practice now, where originally it was just really emails. Now it's moving on to things like mortgage deeds, which a couple of years ago was probably really not contemplated by anybody. Now those 3 levels of signature are quite important, depending on where you're doing business, and we've made a handout available on the webinar, which is Adobe's Guide to Electronic Signatures, and this goes into quite a lot of detail about what kind of signatures you need depending on the type of transaction you're doing in what jurisdiction. So if you're doing business in South Africa, for example, you need to know what kind of electronic signature you need for certain types of documentation. And for example, some jurisdictions insist on having what we would now call a qualified electronic signature if it's a document that would otherwise need to be witnessed, or if it's a particular type of transaction, maybe a land transaction. So it is important you work out what jurisdiction you're transacting business in, and the Adobe Guide is quite a good place to start for that. There's another document that we're going to make available in some notes from this series of webinars, which is the London Law Society's note on the execution of documents using electronic signatures. Now this was particularly the Finance and Commercial Committee of the London Law Society, but it caused quite a stir towards the end of last year when they published it, because it was really the first time that a law society had said, look, this is happening, it's real, it's effective and it works well, and here's some guidance on using it. So we're going to make that document available as well. So it's the London Law Society, not the main law society, and it was mainly predicated on commercial and finance transactions, but it makes quite interesting reading because they recognise that this is something that is coming round the corner quite fast for the rest of legal practice. So that's 2 documents that are well worth a read. The other thing that we're going to make available is the eIDAS regulations. And if you really can't sleep one evening, that makes a great read, but it is worth going through because, as I say, this is starting to affect all areas of practice now. So why would you want to do it? Well, in many ways, it's kind of an obvious answer, really. You get documents signed fast, but there's quite a few reasons that sit underneath that. And one of the things that we are seeing a lot with clients at the moment is firms trying to differentiate themselves from competitors, and we're increasingly seeing a client-first strategy within law firms. And you think historically law firms tend to engage with the client in the way that the law firm wants to engage, so typically that means by sending them letters. But of course clients these days are much more technically capable than they were even 5 years ago. So making the client first, or putting the client first and allowing them to engage with you in a way that they want, i.e. potentially via their smartphone, we're seeing is giving quite a lot of clients a good competitive advantage, and it is giving the clients really what they've been asking for quite a while. We mentioned risk and compliance earlier on. This is a very good way to ensure that compliance is part of your process. So in the olden days, you'd send out your terms of business letter, and you'd probably get it back signed, and you'd probably put it on the file, and you might even mark off a checklist that you got it. But it was a separate activity to ensure that your fee earners were complying with whatever process you'd laid down. You can now make that automatic, and you can make it part of the process. And it's just, non-compliance becomes a thing of the past because they can't not comply if they're using a system like this. Obviously it's fully auditable as well, so you can see what's happening all the way through the transaction. That's really useful if you get quite a few people signing a document. You can see where it is in the signing process, and the system will automatically route it onto the next signer for you. But there's also impacts on things like work in progress and cost of sale. If you can compress the timescale for getting your work started, so take a simple conveyancing transaction. In the olden days, you'd send out terms of business letter by post. The client would probably not sign it, so you'd end up sending them another letter. At this point, you've probably built in 10 days to 2 weeks worth of delay at the beginning of a transaction. And either the fee earner loses interest in getting it back then and just cracks on, or the delay continues until the client complies. So using something like this, the very first time we saw one of our clients use this, and their client was waiting for it, but they had the signed T's and C's back in their case history in 15 minutes, and that's a compression that you can only dream of with paper. So there's quite a big impact on lockup in terms of your work in progress, but also on the cost of sale, because you're able to compress that time, and if it's going to be an abortive transaction, you're going to find out far quicker. There's a heap more reasons to use it. We could quite happily talk about this all day, but I'm sure you don't all have time for that. And one of the other ones, obviously, is getting forms filled out and getting data back into your case management system, which is another thing that you can do with a system such as this. So a range of reasons to use it. So I'm going to just drop out of PowerPoint and go back over to my Visualfiles system. The first thing the eagle-eyed Visualfiles users will notice is that we're still using 2.6, mainly because we like it. But the system works equally well in Solcase. We've got a lot of Solcase sites using eSign already, and some back up-to-date version 3.x of Visualfiles as well. So we've integrated it just by using standard scripting language, so there's nothing unusual that we're doing within Visualfiles that isn't capable of being done in older versions. So I've got a file here. I'll just minimize the Visualfiles main window. Now this is just, this could be any kind of file. The way that we distribute the eSign components is by way of an add-in for Visualfiles, so you can really put that add-in into any case type and use this functionality in any case type. Now we've chosen to access that via a tab. In more up-to-date versions of Visualfiles, you'd access it via a quick step, but it could equally well be done just as part of a workflow process or a button on a screen somewhere if you wanted to. So clicking the tab, I just get taken to my eSign screen. I'm going to go through and fill this in manually by clicking buttons and entering text. But this is just a standard Visualfiles screen, so we've got plenty of clients that do this step either fully automatically or in some cases semi-automatically by clicking buttons and just having the system pick up documents that are being produced and pick up email addresses and so on. So first thing I'm going to do is just go and select a couple of documents from my case history. I've got two documents in here that I have prepared. I've got this one, technical specification, and a terms of business letter. I'm going to use both of those. The reason I'm using those is that I've put codes in those. The Adobe Sign system is very good at allowing you to code up documents in a similar way that you'd code up documents for Visualfiles and Solcase. The coding language is slightly different, obviously, but it means that you can control very tightly what information you gather and in what part of the document. So I've put a couple of codes in there just for demonstration purposes, but that means that you can put those codes in your precedent documents in Visualfiles. You just put them in a white font, so if you print them, no one ever sees them. But if the document ends up going out via eSign, the codes will get recognized by Adobe, and the relevant form fields will be dropped into that document. It's then possible to extract that data once the documents are downloaded and populate it back into Visualfiles as well. So there's quite a lot of control that you've got. I'm going to send this document to me, which I appreciate is slightly artificial, but you'll see both sides of the transaction going on. I could send it to more than one recipient if I wanted to, and the system will route the document through to the signers in the order that I add them. And we're going to just give it a subject line, test for Visualfiles webinar. Hi Tim, here are the documents for signature. Kind regards Tim. I'll leave that spelling mistake in there so you can see that come through. We've also got the option here to either separate the documents when we download them, which is probably what we want to do, or if you want to, you can untick that and the system will just concatenate all of those documents once they've been signed and attach one concatenated document back to case history. We can also set a reminder here if we want to remind the next signer in the list, either daily or weekly, to sign the document. We've also built some functionality I'll show you in a minute to enable you to do that either from a button or from scripting. So once you're happy, you just simply click the send button, and all that's going to do is go and extract the documents from case history and then upload them to the Adobe system with a little packet of data to instruct it as to what to do. That should complete in a moment. Again, you can suppress this box if you want to. If you're doing it automatically, you wouldn't want to see this. This is just to give the user some feedback that something's happening. After a dramatic pause, it's finished. Now, the system normally processes the documents quite quickly, so what's going to happen on my other screen in a moment is I should get an email through. So, and I'll drag that onto the screen so that you can see it. Okay, so this is the email that I've received as the signer. I'll receive another one in a moment as the sender, just confirming what's happened. And again, this is all controllable from your Adobe account, but we set it up to alert the sender as well. So I've got a link here to click to go and sign the document. There's the message that we put in, complete with my spelling mistake. And we also got the subject line up here. There's some branding capability with this as well, so you can put your logo and so on the email, so the user's given some comfort it's come from you. And once I'm happy and ready to sign that, I'll just simply click the link to take me through to my web browser. This works really well on tablets and mobile phones and smartphones as well. And the website that Adobe produced is very responsive, so it's very easy for clients to sign this on mobile devices. So I get given a PDF representation of the documents. Bear in mind the documents I created obviously out of Visualfiles were Word, and we'd expect then the user would scroll through the document to find the areas where they need to sign it. They also get given these little sticky notes on the side, so they can click there just to take them through to the next area where data is required. Now I'm going to click into the signature field here. Now, because I've got an Adobe account, I've got a signature associated with that. But what a signer that didn't, you don't have to have an Adobe account. What a signer would see that didn't have an Adobe account, they get taken to this box here. Now, at this point, they can either upload an image with their signature if they want to, or they could type their signature here, and Adobe will make that look like a signature, or if they want to, they could draw their signature if they've got a touch screen and so on. So either of those are fine. So I'm going to use the typed one, and I'll just click apply. Now at that point also, had I attached any other security to the signing process, I could have been made to enter a password or validate my email address against something like LinkedIn or Twitter or Google or Facebook, one of the federated authentication suppliers. So there's a range of different ways that I could have, I can make the signer effectively prove who they are, which is a million times better than paper, obviously. I can then scroll down to the next place where I'm required to enter some data. And on this particular one, I've asked the user to enter their NI number, so they can type the number in there. That's just a random piece of text. There's quite a lot of different types of fields we can use for that, for dates, and you can get them to initial every page, and you can put masks on the data as well, so there's a lot of control that you've got over these fields. And then we'll click in the second place to sign there. So now we've completed all the documents to sign. I can just tick the box to say that I agree to do business electronically, and then I can click to sign. So it's a really straightforward process for the signer. They don't have to print anything. They can if they wish. They can do that on a range of devices such as tablets and computers and so on. Now that that's been signed, just whilst we're waiting for that to be processed from the Adobe end, I'll just show you the other areas that we've got within Visualfiles. We maintain in here details of all of the documents that have been sent, so this is just a group screen. The status will get updated. I'll talk to you about the updates in just a moment, but there's a range of other things we can do about or with this document from here. One of the things we might want to do is cancel it. So if that's been sent to someone in error, you might want to cancel it and withdraw the document from Adobe. You can do that very easily here. We can also do things like send a reminder. So, and that could be scripted because it's just running a script in the background. So you might want to send a reminder if the signer hasn't signed after, say, 3 days, and that can be done automatically via a robot. We can also get an audit log and various other things as well. We'll get an audit log on this particular one in a moment. Now, in terms of updating the Visualfiles system, one of the things we spoke about earlier on was we've done the send now. Now we want to do the update. Now, we've got some system scripts here, so I've just set that off running. Now, these system scripts would normally be set on a server, and they'd be scheduled to run, so the user would never see this, and the user would never have to do this. Most of the clients we've got running this at the moment run the updates between 2 and 4 times a day, depending on how frequently they want the updates to be obtained. You can run it as frequently as you like, because it is just a system script, and you could allow the users to run it if you really wanted to as well. So it's pretty quick to run, and what that's going to do is to go and get all of the updates for all of the items that are currently outstanding. So in this particular case, we can see here that we sent the echo sign successfully there at 11:22, and then at 11:27, because the document has now been signed, we've downloaded both of those documents back into case history. So I'll just go and have a look at one of those. Give Adobe a moment to open. Yeah, I should have opened Adobe before we started. We'll have a look in a moment. That's also set a schedule note for the fee earner as well to alert them via the to-do list that the documents have been back and assigned. If I just zoom out of that a little. So this is one of the documents that we had signed. If I just scroll down to the bottom, you can see the signature down here. You'll also notice that when I hover over the signature, it's actually a hyperlink, and that will take me back to an audit for this particular document on the Adobe website. So a very quick way to get back to the audit log if I want to go and have a look at it. But we can download an audit log separately, which I'll show you. Let's have a quick look on the schedule for that document as well. So we've got 2 items in there now. We had 2 documents back, alerting the fee earner to the fact that those documents have been signed and they've been automatically attached back to case history. If I just go back to the sent item screen, you can see the status has now been updated to downloaded because we downloaded the signed copy. If I just click on Get Audit, that'll go and get an audit log for me, which is a certified and digitally signed document that Adobe produce. That'll get attached to case history for me. So I go back onto case history. There's my audit. And if I go back in and have a look at that, this is the document that we get. So this details everything that's happened from the moment we created that document and sent it all the way through to when the document was signed by the user. And it includes things like IP addresses and the machine that the user used to sign and so on. And we've got some clients that get one of these automatically whenever they download a signed document and attach it back into case history. So that's entirely up to your personal preference. So that's a quick overview of how it all works. If we just go back to the presentation here, we've got a few minutes. I have gone over time because that's normally what happens. So we've got time for a few questions here, but hopefully you can see in there it's a pretty straightforward process from signing, from sending the documents, selecting the documents to be sent, choosing the recipients, having Adobe send them out for signature, and then getting the signed documents and the status updates back into Visualfiles as you're going through. So it's a pretty straightforward process, can be fully automated if you want to out of Visualfiles. Our experience, we've been doing this now for probably 4 or 5 years now with Adobe, is that it's an extremely effective process. We've got a lot of clients in the personal injury world doing this because it's very, very time sensitive to get T's and C's signed in order to get work logged onto the MOJ portal. But increasingly we've got conveyancers now looking at this as ways of differentiating themselves from the competition, being able to engage with the clients really, really quickly. Just whilst anyone's thinking about any questions, also to let you know this afternoon we've got a further webinar, same kind of thing, but we're looking at the same process out of iManage. So if iManage is your DMS of choice, feel free to log on to that and have a look. That's at 3 o'clock this afternoon. We're also producing the workbook. That should be out by the end of this week, so that'll be sent to everyone that's registered for the webinars as well. And it'll just contain really sort of top 10 guide of getting the best out of eSignatures, but also details of the various downloads that we've talked about and the various reference points that you'll probably need for questions you get asked internally. Finally, I know we know most of you on the call today, but feel free to pick the phone up, speak to me or anybody in the office really. We've all been doing this for a while now, so we can talk about it all afternoon, but give us a call if there's any specific questions that you'd like to ask or anything that may affect your own particular processes particularly. And if there's anyone else at your business as well that would like to have a look at this, either let them have a look at the video or by all means give us a call and we can set up another online session just for you to have a look at your own particular processes and how it might work for you. So I think I've talked for long enough.
Hi Tim, Dave here. We've just had a couple of questions come through, so I'll put you on the spot if that's all right.
Fine. Yes, lovely. Thank you.
Good. This is quite technical, but someone has asked, so thank you for putting this through, has asked, obviously this is used for electronic signatures, and we mentioned forms a little bit. Could you roughly or briefly explain, not in too much detail, how they could use forms or form fields and how that would work in pulling data back into Visualfiles or Solcase? And again, thank you for that question.
Yep, no, it's a good question, and it's something we've done for quite a few clients now. The form fields in Adobe use a bespoke set of fields that Adobe have published for eSignatures, and they are simply put into a document in exactly the same way as you put Visualfiles codes into a document, so you can control layout and flow very, very well. Now it is possible, therefore, to code up really quite complex forms, and we have, for a few clients, coded up things like the claim notification form in MOJ and the seller's property information form and client information forms in conveyancing and other similar types of forms. The form goes out to the client and they would fill in the data in the same way as I did with the NI number, and at the point of download our integration automatically extracts the completed data, and because we know where the matter is that the form originated from, we can then write scripts that will process that data back into your fields, so we can update, for example, client contact information or claim information in the case of PI very, very quickly. It is quite a sophisticated system, and it's amazing what you can achieve with that. You have to be a little bit careful not to make it too complicated for the user, because a form that works on paper doesn't necessarily look aesthetically pleasing to the signer when they're filling it out on screen. So sometimes there's a bit of design work to do in making that work. But the process will happen fully automatically. So there'll be nothing else for the user to do. They will simply be alerted to the fact that a document was signed and information had been updated back into Visualfiles. And because that's controlled by scripting, you've got a very fine level of control over what data you update and how you do it. So very simple to do. If anyone's got any particular desire to have a look at a specific example of that, let me know and I can show you. We've got some fairly complicated, in terms of the forms that are being filled out, examples that we can show you. Hopefully that answers the question, but let me know if there's any other points on that. And just checking with Dave if there are any other questions that have come in.
Yeah, there's a couple more, but they're really technical and really boring. I'm joking. They're really technical, so I think what we'll do is we'll take those ones offline, we'll type them up and share them after the webinar.
Well, we'll include all the questions that have been asked over this session and the previous one that we held in the workbook for both Visualfiles and for iManage. So we'll just put a little Q&A section at the back of that and include all of those. But say if anyone's got any other points, feel free, give us a ring, drop us a line, you know where we are, and we'd be happy to help. And if there are no other questions and no other points, thank you very much for attending, taking time out today. Hope you found it useful. Please have a look at the video when it comes out a bit later on and show anyone else in the business. And if you have any questions, we look forward to speaking to many of you, hopefully very soon. Thanks very much.